He sat in complete darkness for 3 hours, chain smoking and watching the elevator like a man possessed. When she finally walked through that door at midnight, smiling at her phone, he realized something terrifying. The most feared crime lord in Los Angeles was about to lose his mind over his cleaning lady. Marcus Chen didn't do jealousy. He didn't do feelings. In his world, emotions got you killed. For 8 years, he'd ruled the West Coast underworld from a glass tower in downtown LA. Politicians feared his calls. Rival gangs whispered his name like a curse. He'd built an empire on ice-cold calculation and ruthless efficiency. But for the past 6 weeks, he'd been doing something absolutely insane. Sitting in the dark. Waiting for her. Her name was Aria Montgomery, and she was supposed to be invisible. Just another employee. Someone who cleaned his penthouse, picked up his dry cleaning, and stayed out of his way. Except Aria wasn't like the others who'd come before her. She didn't flinch when he walked into a room. Didn't stare at the scars that crawled up his forearms. Didn't ask questions about the meetings that happened behind closed doors at 3 a.m. She just existed in his space like she belonged there, and it was driving him absolutely insane. Marcus had a rule. Never get attached. Not after what happened with Elena. But every Tuesday and Thursday for the past month and a half, Aria had been disappearing. Leaving the penthouse at 7 p.m. and not returning until almost midnight. And every single time, Marcus found himself doing this. Sitting in the dark, smoking through half a pack, inventing scenarios in his head that made him want to put his fist through the wall. Tonight, it stopped. You're home late. Aria's head snapped up. Her phone nearly slipped from her fingers. Marcus was a shadow in the corner, backlit by the city lights 70 floors below. His shirt was open, revealing the network of scars and ink that covered his chest. His eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her throat go dry. I didn't realize I had a curfew, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. You don't. He stood, and suddenly the massive living room felt suffocating. But when someone who works for me starts keeping secrets, I notice. I'm not keeping secrets. Really? He took a step closer. Then another. Because my security team says you've been taking the same route every Tuesday and Thursday. Same destination in Echo Park. Same 3-hour window. You want to tell me what's so important that you're sneaking around? The blood drained from Aria's face. You've been following me? I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Marcus's jaw tightened. For a moment, something raw and vulnerable flashed across his face. Something that looked almost like pain. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold mask she'd seen him wear with everyone else. You're hiding something, he said quietly. And in my world, people who hide things usually have a reason. So I'm going to ask you one more time, Aria. Where have you been going? She wanted to tell him. God, she wanted to. But the truth was complicated, and judging by the look in his eyes, he'd already decided she was guilty of something. I have a life outside these walls, she said instead. I don't owe you an explanation for every hour of my day. Wrong answer. Marcus moved so fast she didn't have time to react. 1 second he was across the room, the next he was inches away. His hand braced against the door behind her head, caging her in. You think I'm playing games? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut like glass. You think I'm asking because I'm bored? I think you're paranoid. I'm careful. There's a difference. She could feel the heat radiating off him, could smell expensive cologne mixed with tobacco smoke. His eyes searched hers, looking for something she didn't know how to give. I had someone once, he said suddenly, and the shift in his tone made her freeze. Someone I trusted completely. She had access to everything. My schedule, my contacts, my vulnerabilities. You know what she did with that trust? Aria shook her head. She sold me out to my enemies. Set up an ambush that should have killed me. Would have, if I hadn't figured it out 12 hours before it happened. His hand moved to his chest, tracing one of the scars. These are her parting gifts. The revelation hit Aria like a punch to the stomach. Suddenly, every cold look, every returned gift, every wall he'd built made horrible sense. Marcus. So forgive me, he continued, if I get a little paranoid when He stopped himself, jaw clenching. When someone in my house starts disappearing without explanation. Aria's hands were shaking as she reached into her bag. She didn't pull out a phone or a weapon or any of the things Marcus's paranoid mind had been imagining. She pulled out a textbook. Advanced Business Law, dog-eared and covered in sticky notes. "I've been going to law school," she said, her voice cracking. "Night classes at UCLA. I'm finishing the degree I had to drop out of 3 years ago when my dad died and left me with nothing but medical debt." Marcus stared at the book like it was written in a foreign language. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want your pity. I didn't want you to offer to pay for it, or to make it easier, or to turn it into another thing I owed you for." She was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. "Every designer bag you left in my room? Every envelope of cash? I gave them all back because I don't want to be someone's charity case. I don't want to be another person you buy." The silence that followed was deafening. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was hoarse. "Law school. Yes. You've been studying. Not betraying you. Not seeing someone else. Not plotting your downfall." She laughed bitterly. "Just trying to build a future that doesn't involve cleaning penthouses for criminals." The word criminals hung between them like a slap. Marcus stepped back, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked lost. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "You should be. Elena, the woman who betrayed me, she destroyed something in me, Aria. Made it impossible to trust anyone. And when you started disappearing, when I couldn't control where you were or what you were doing." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I convinced myself you were dangerous. Because the alternative was admitting that you scared me for a completely different reason." "What reason?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. "Because you make me feel things I swore I'd never feel again." 3 days later, everything went to hell. Aria knew something was wrong the moment she walked into the penthouse. The air felt different, charged with a tension that had nothing to do with their usual electricity. Marcus was in the living room with his second-in-command, Vincent Park. They both turned when she entered, and the look on Marcus's face made her stomach drop. "Is it true?" His voice was flat, emotionless. "Have you been in contact with the Petrov family?" "What? No. I don't even know who that is." Vincent stepped forward, holding up a tablet. "These are financial records. Wire transfers from a Petrov shell company to an account in your name. 6 payments over the last 2 months, totaling $200,000. Aria felt like the floor was falling out from under her. "That's impossible. I don't have that account. I've never." "There's more," Vincent interrupted. "Encrypted messages sent from your phone to a Petrov contact. Meeting locations. Security schedules. Safe house addresses." "No." She looked at Marcus, desperate for him to believe her. "Marcus, this isn't real. Someone's setting me up." But his face was stone. Whatever fragile trust they'd been building had shattered completely. "Get out," he said quietly. "Marcus, please. Get out." The roar echoed through the penthouse. "Before I do something we'll both regret." Aria ran. She grabbed her essentials and fled to a motel in Koreatown, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. Someone had framed her. But who? And why? The answer came 2 days later, when she broke into the penthouse through a service entrance she'd memorized months ago. If she was going down, she was going down fighting. She made it to Marcus's office, the one room she'd been explicitly forbidden from entering, and started digging through his files. The evidence was sophisticated, she'd give them that. But whoever had created it had made one crucial mistake. The timestamps. Every single message, every transaction, every supposed betrayal had occurred on Tuesday and Thursday evenings between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Exactly when she'd been sitting in law school lectures with 200 witnesses. She was downloading the proof when she heard the door lock click behind her. Vincent stood in the doorway, gun in hand, wearing an expression that was almost sympathetic. "You're cleverer than I expected," he said. "Most people would have just run." Aria's blood turned to ice. "It was you." "For 3 years now, actually. The Petrovs pay better than Marcus ever did. And they're not sentimental about cleaning ladies who make the boss go soft." "He trusted you. He trusted Elena too. Some people never learn." Vincent raised the gun. "Nothing personal. Arya. But you've become a problem that needs solving. Arya had exactly 2 seconds to make a choice. She grabbed the heavy glass paperweight from Marcus's desk and hurled it at Vincent's face with everything she had. It connected with a sickening crunch, and the gun went off, the bullet shattering the window behind her. She didn't wait to see if he'd recover. She ran. The penthouse had suddenly become a maze of death. Vincent was behind her, wounded but furious, and she had nowhere to go except Marcus's panic room. She'd noticed it weeks ago while cleaning, hidden behind a false wall in his bedroom. She'd memorized the code the same way she'd memorized everything else about this place, filing away information she never thought she'd need. She punched in the numbers, 0824, his mother's death date, and threw herself inside just as Vincent rounded the corner. The reinforced door sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss. Inside, surrounded by surveillance monitors and emergency supplies, Arya grabbed Marcus's backup phone and typed 5 words that would either save her life or end it. Vincent is the traitor. Hurry. 45 minutes later, across the city in a warehouse meeting, Marcus's world stopped. He looked at the message, looked at the number, and felt something crack open in his chest. "We're leaving," he announced, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Now." He made the 30-minute drive in 12, running red lights and nearly causing 3 accidents. His security team followed in a convoy, but Marcus barely registered them. All he could think about was Arya, trapped in his penthouse with a traitor he'd trusted for 8 years. He burst through the door to find Vincent trying to breach the panic room with a crowbar, blood streaming from a broken nose. "Vincent!" The other man froze. Marcus didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The gun in his hand said everything. "The Petrovs are paying you, I assume?" Vincent's face twisted. "You got weak. Distracted. She was making you into something you're not. She was making me human. There's a difference. In our world, human gets you killed." "Maybe." Marcus cocked the gun. "But I'd rather die human than live as whatever you've become." After his team had Vincent on his knees and secured, Marcus entered the panic room code. Arya was standing in the center of the small space, tears streaming down her face, holding the tablet with her evidence like a shield. "I can prove it," she said immediately. "I can prove I was in class every time those messages were sent. I have witnesses, security footage, time-stamped assignments." Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "I know," he whispered into her hair. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." 3 months later. The rooftop bar in Santa Monica was bathed in golden sunset light, the Pacific Ocean stretching out like liquid amber as far as the eye could see. Arya sat at a corner table, law books spread out in front of her, a half-empty coffee cup cooling beside her laptop. She was so focused on her contracts reading that she didn't notice Marcus approaching until he set a small black box down on top of her textbook. She looked up, startled. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a key. Not to a car or a safe. To an apartment. "It's 2 blocks from campus," Marcus explained, sitting down across from her. "Top floor, west-facing, so you'll have natural light for studying. Already furnished, rent paid through graduation." "Marcus, it's not charity," he interrupted. "It's an apology. And an investment. I can't accept. You're going to be a lawyer, Arya. A damn good one. And when you graduate, I'm hiring you." She stared at him. "Hiring me? I need someone I can trust. Someone who won't sell me out. Someone who broke into my office and outsmarted a traitor just to prove her innocence." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "I need you. As your lawyer. As my partner. In every sense of the word." Arya's breath caught. Over the past 3 months, something had shifted between them. The paranoid crime lord had been replaced by someone softer. Someone who showed up at her law school library with coffee and asked about her cases. Someone who'd stopped hiding behind walls and started letting her see the man underneath the scars. "I'm still going to graduate," she said firmly. "I'm still going to build my own career. I'm counting on it. And I'm not going to be one of your possessions. You never were. I was just too damaged to see it." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I spent 8 years building walls so high I forgot what light looked like. You tore them down without even trying." Arya smiled, squeezing his fingers. "You know what the irony is? What? I came to LA with $43 and a mountain of debt, thinking I'd never escape. And then I accidentally fell in love with the most dangerous man in the city. Marcus's expression softened. For what it's worth, the most dangerous man in the city fell first. He was just too stubborn to admit it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire, they sat together. The law student and the crime lord, the woman who'd refused to be bought and the man who'd finally learned that some things were worth more than control. I love you, Marcus said, the words still foreign on his tongue but getting easier each time. I love you too, Arya replied. But I'm still keeping my own apartment. He laughed. A real laugh, the kind that made the scars on his chest seem a little less heavy. I wouldn't expect anything less. In the end she did graduate. Top of her class. And Marcus was in the front row, watching the woman who'd saved his life walk across that stage to claim the future she'd fought so hard to build. Some love stories start with lightning. Theirs started with suspicion, darkness, and a law textbook. But it ended with light.